Don't you wish everything was more rewarding? With Rakuten, almost everything is. You can earn cash back on those new shoes you've been wanting. You can save on the next trip you book. You can cash in on groceries. Rakuten is a smart way to save money and feel rewarded when you shop. Rakuten partners with all of your favorite brands across so many categories: fashion, beauty, travel, concert tickets, electronics, restaurants, and more. Just join, shop your favorite brands, and save. Target, Instacart, Expedia, Macy's, Sephora, CVS. The list is long. Save online, in-store, and at over 22,000 restaurants. And when it's time to redeem those rewards, get your money exactly how you want it. Choose PayPal, check, Bilt points, or cash out with gift cards. So go ahead, take a trip, fill a cart, order dessert. Rakuten is a world of rewards. Join today for free. Go to Rakuten.com or get the app. That's RAKUTEN.
Been really looking forward to this conversation with Max Goodman. Does a great job. NewJersey.com Mets beat reporter. Joins us now here in the Progressive Guest Line. Give him a follow on X at Max T. Goodman. And Max, as we were talking about during the break here with me, you, and Jensen, I'm a diehard Metropolitan fan. I like to bet them as well. Can I feel better about this baseball team coming into this year after the collapse that we all witnessed last September to somehow miss the postseason and only end up with 83 wins a year ago?
I think you can. I really do. And first off, thanks for having me, guys. Good morning. I think with all of the changes that this organization made this past offseason, a lot of them were pointed decisions, looking beyond sentimentality, getting rid of some fan favorites. And early in the offseason, you're looking at, again, a team that had just collapsed, had missed the playoffs, and had gotten rid of so many talented players. And you're wondering, what the heck is this organization doing, right? But as the weeks and months progressed, they started to make some impactful acquisitions. And I think when you look at the way that this roster is constructed now, yes, there are some risks there. It's a new look infield. We'll see how the defense looks early on. They're going to rely on a mix of young players, potentially, rookie phenom Carson Benj in right field. And then the older players, you bring in Marcus Semien in the Brandon Nimmo trade. We'll see how that works out. So there are definitely question marks throughout this roster, but I think David Stearns and the front office deserve a round of applause in a sense here for making a lot of changes after the way last season went in a market where championships are the expectation. And that standard has not been met for the last several years and beyond that in Queens.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Max, you mentioned the big free agent signings offensively to replace Pete Alonso, Jorge Polanco coming in, obviously, after a great postseason run with the Mariners, Marcus Semien in that straight-up trade for Brandon Nimmo. Let me ask you about Bo Bichette. And obviously, the elephant in the room here, as you alluded to, we got Bo Bichette learning a new position at the hot corner. We got Jorge Polanco learning a position that he hasn't played at first base. I can tell you as a former major league reliever coming in with runners in scoring position, not the greatest amount of confidence if I get a ball down the line. But I think for people that are on the outside looking in, to me, I would exercise caution because I think this team offensively, and I'll get your thoughts on it, this team may be better offensively this year even without Pete Alonso, with the other additions, including Luis Robert Jr. coming over and a change of scenery move too.
I'm with you. I think that this team has definitely taken a step forward offensively. And, there are some merits to having 4 shortstops across your infield, right? I do think that they'll be able to handle, like the hands, right? Bichette and Polanco have been playing up the middle throughout their careers. They should be good at fielding the ground balls. I'm just curious how, Bichette's arm will play on those deep ground balls down the line that, Arenado, Chapman, Machado, like they make those throws look easy. Bichette, if you look at the StatCast metrics, like that hasn't necessarily been his MO throughout his career. So that's my question there. And Polanco with the footwork at first base, it's just going to take reps and time. And I think that once we see that in games, and it's important for them to get that experience under their belt this spring, that's when their teammates and also the fans who are scratching their heads in a way of how those decisions were made will start to feel more comfortable. But with the lineup, there are a few X factors in the middle with Robert Jr. You mentioned, maybe Francisco Alvarez can finally have a full breakout season. But when you look at the depth of not just the top four where you have proven all-star caliber talent, but then the lineup as a whole. Like, I think this is a deeper unit, a more high octane unit than we've seen in years past, where yes, filling Pete Alonso's, powerful shoes is borderline impossible, right? Like, getting 50 home runs is going to be tough from one player. But when you have the aggregate and the quality of at bat throughout this order and working the count, being able to hit behind runners, and the protection isn't necessarily just one player right behind Soto. It's also the first and second hitters, and then 4 through 9, and they can string, rallies together, at least on paper. That's my sense of how this lineup will look. And again, it'll be very different. Talk to me in 2 months after the regular season has definitely gotten underway. But that's the sense I've gotten being around this team this spring.
Max, it's fascinating because Jensen's perspective as a player is so unique, and then ours as reporters, and I've been in a lot of those clubhouses and in locker rooms in various sports for a lot of years. Sometimes it's contrived that you hear about these rifts between major stars in clubhouses, and we're hearing that now about possibly with Soto and Francisco Lindor. What's your take on that? You don't necessarily need to be best buds all the time to win at the highest level, but is there a real issue as to who is the true leader in this clubhouse?
Well, what I'll say is that this is my first spring covering the team, so I wasn't in there last year. So my perspective is just how spring training has been going so far. And I haven't sensed any issues in that clubhouse. In fact, I would say it's the total opposite. Coming over from covering another team, the vibe that I'm getting in there is that these guys are pretty close knit. What comes to mind first off, I know this isn't Lindor or Soto, but, during live BP at Clover Park, a lot of the Latin players are sitting behind home plate. Freddie Peralta and Francisco Alvarez, and then a bunch of relievers. They're chopping it up. They're laughing. They're watching their teammates get their work in. So I know the vibes are always high. And as a former player, you can speak to this too. Like, everyone's in great shape right now. The stakes aren't as high. The guys who are competing for roster spots, it's early. Now the games are starting to get underway. Again, we'll see how things go over the next several weeks. But the bottom line with what I'll say here is that everything's easier when you're winning, right? And last year at the beginning of the season, no one was talking about any clubhouse issues for the Mets. And like you alluded to also, these guys don't have to be best friends. But when the team starts to spiral towards the end of the year and collapse and end up missing the playoffs with the payroll they have, with the expectations they have, of course, everything's going to be under a microscope. And that's when those stories are going to start to come out, whether they're warranted or not. So the folks that I've talked to in the organization, I haven't gotten the sense that was a real, terrible issue for them at the end of last year. I think that the bottom line there is that they just weren't playing well. And the success that they weren't having on the field translated to some of the reports that came out and how things were going behind the scenes.
Yeah, nothing like a New York microscope to try and pick apart anything in a clubhouse. We've seen it not only there in Queens, but in the Bronx as well. All right, I had said it last year, Max, and obviously this year going in, if you're going to try and run down the Dodgers, you not only have to have an offense that can be competent, but you must have a rotation that has some guys at the top that can really be forces to be reckoned with. Boy, do the Mets answer a massive question mark at the top of the rotation with the acquisition of Freddie Peralta. I do think it takes some pressure off of Nolan McLean, David Peterson, the rest of that rotation. Just from a semantic standpoint, we know that he answers the number one starter. Do you believe that this could be a rotation that may go with a six-man out of camp to kind of protect, the length of some of these young guys? You still have Clay Holmes coming back, who's looked really great in the WBC thus far. Shamanaya, Kodai Senga, they've all dealt with injuries the last couple of years. Would it be viable in your mind if you had to say Carlos Mendoza is going to say six-man rotation, or do they make a decision to cut it down to 5?
So first thing there is it's a good problem to have that they have 6 healthy big league starters. And there's a lot of depth there too, right? Jonah Tong, Christian Scott, Tobias Myers, who's in the bullpen. He also has starting experience. So they have other starters they can turn to if they are hit with the injury bug. And let's be honest, guys, it's inevitable. Guys will get hurt, whether it's now or throughout the season. So that's important. The best teams do have that depth. A couple weeks ago, I think it was, Stearns was asked if he'd be open to a 6-man rotation. And his answer was basically just kicking that rock down the road, right? Like that's something that we'll attack if we get closer to opening day and everybody's still healthy. Because when you look at those 6 starters, what's Kodai Senga going to do? What's Shamanaya going to do this year? Obviously, at the top of the rotation, I think it's more of a sure thing what the Mets are going to get with Peralta and McClain. By the end of this year, McClain might be the true ace of this team. But going into it, I'm not surprised that Peralta's starting on opening day. He's your number one guy. They brought him in for a reason. They spent the prospect capital that they did for a reason there. So injuries will come, whether you like it or not, whether you're being cynical or not, that is going to happen at some point. So it's good that they have depth. But hey, if opening day comes around and everybody's healthy, I don't know, right? I mean, you got to have all 6 of those guys on the team in some way. I wouldn't expect them to, send somebody down. So in that case, is Senga or Peterson maybe going to go to the bullpen? Would Clay Holmes maybe go into a different role? I think that they'll decide that when they get to it, when they cross that bridge. But the bottom line again is that everybody needs to be healthy for as much of the season as they can get them, right? And those depth arms that I mentioned need to step up throughout the season too.
They're the favorites to win the NL East at plus $1.50. Their win total sitting at 90.5. Max, you've got a team that you're covering this year with very lofty expectations there in Queens. Really enjoyed the conversation, Max. Have fun covering this team, and hopefully it's a winning team here for not just yours truly, but all the Metropolitan fans out there. Give them a follow on X at Max T. Goodman, NewJersey.com.